Working with our ancestors might play a more important role in plant spirit work than you think. In this class, I want to dig in and look at how our relationships to our mighty dead influence the way that we can connect to the plant spirits. So, when I talk about working with the ancestors, I'm talking about working with three classes of once human persons who have received the initiation of death. And I think this is super, super important, especially for those of us who are not living on our ancestral lands. We're living on someone else's. If you are, I still think that approaching the ancestors in this way makes a lot of sense. It served me really well and it clicks into my practice really well. So before we get into the whys and hows, the three sort of categories of ancestors that I like to work with are the ancestors of blood. So the ancestors who have made me who I am, whose face I can see in my face. I carry their genetics, I carry their traditions and their nuances and their idiosyncrasies. They are my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents, so on and so forth. Then I honor the ancestors of land. And this is super important for me because I live in a place where my particular family hasn't been for very long. And so to acknowledge that people have been here before me and loved this place that I am and have had a deep relationship with it, and to acknowledge them ancestrally, that they are now my forebears, is very important. It's an important debt to pay, and it's also an important acknowledgement to carry in your heart. And then finally, the ancestors of tradition. I want to be in relationship with all the herbalists of the past, all of the plant spirit workers of the past, all of the herb nerds of the past, right? I want to have an open line of communication between those people because they carry so much wisdom and so much experience back, from one or two generations ago to the beginningless beginning. So, three classes or categories of ancestors. Breaking it down like that doesn't make a lot of sense for some people. For me, it really does. And in my daily ritual practice, I acknowledge each of them individually, giving them proper respect and honor for who they are and for what role they play in my practice and in my experience of plant medicine. So why is working with the ancestors so important in plant spirit work? First and foremost, as we touched on a little bit earlier, these people carry plant wisdom within them. Not all of them, but a lot of them have done the work. They have had relationships with these plant spirits. They have the lore, the mythology, the applications, the traditions of plant medicine that they still hold within them. And so to have a relationship with them means that we open up a pathway between us and them, and they're invited to influence our learning, to arrange things for us, to lead us into synchronicities, to bring things onto our path that they are aware will be helpful in awakening or reawakening plant wisdom within us. So this is very important. Another aspect for people who are vocationally involved in plant spirit work is that by doing personal healing with the plants, we are in effect creating waves of healing that ripple through our ancestral lines. And so by me healing my stuff, I am also providing medicine for my ancestors to heal and unwind their stuff, right? And that is an offering of great import to the mighty dead, to see that these ancestral patterns, these ancestral knots that we carry are being resolved. They're being healed. This is probably the greatest of all offerings that we can make to our mighty dead. So to heal ourselves, to do self-care, to take care of ourselves in the context of plant spirit medicine is greatly valued by the mighty dead. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, those folks who we count among the dead have successfully completed an initiation. They have crossed over. They understand a mystery that only the dead can understand. They have, as the plants do at the end of the growing cycle every year, they have been laid down on the dirt and have passed through the mysteries of compost into states of otherness. They have moved through the veil, passed through the hedge, and experienced what it means to take a final exhalation in this world and to then take an inhalation in the world of otherness. So that initiation in and of itself gives the ancestors great power and great perspective, because the thing that a lot of folks on this side of the hedge spend their entire lives trying to avoid, not thinking about, being afraid of, which is death, they've done it. And they know all the things we guess, they know for sure, right? So this is very important. To have allies on the other side who can speak to us from that place of the undying spirit, who can speak to us from a place of cyclical energy, that if we are in relationship with our ancestors, then our ancestors must still exist, which then implies that the spirit, as we're taught in pretty much all native traditions across time and place, is an undying thing, that the body changes, the mind changes, the spirit moves on. And this ties into plant spirit work because it's a reminder that we are always being taught by the plants. And in this particular meditation, it's the trees that will show us year after year after year that what appears to be death in the autumn and deathness in the winter, when the trees appear to be skeletons, no leaves, no fruit, no flowers, no life, frozen, stiff, and pale, do in fact return in the spring. They wake back up. Their corpse-like bodies become flush again with the verdant green power of vital force, of life energy. And what was in all effects dead a few months ago is now teeming with life, not only the life of the tree themselves, but all of the animals and insects, birds who call that tree home and find their universe in that tree. So the plants, the cyclical nature of plants, and the way that, this is something we'll get into in later classes, plant lore ties into the dying and rising deity motifs, dying and rising deity cycles, is really all playing into the biggest obsession of the human mind, which is death, birth, and what happens between them, right? If we look at any of our mystery traditions, most of our impetus for medicine, most of our impetus for magic, pretty much it's all wrapped up in the mysteries of death and birth. And so to approach working with the mighty dead is very, very powerful. It helps take some fear out of the whole equation, right? And reminds us that nature's always teaching us that the spirit is eternal, life is undying, that the way of nature is cyclical, not linear. And with cyclicality comes a return to states. Whatever is now will not be, and whatever is currently not will be again. So having a relationship with your ancestors, very, very important for this work. So let's talk about how to do that. At least a few of you are already fighting me on this conversation because there are ancestors in your lineage that you do not want to have a relationship. You don't want to mess with them. You don't want to take care of them. You don't want to hear what they have to say. This is why in my personal practice, I do not work heavily with any individual person, right? I'm not creating practices around or cultic practices around specific people who I've known or who are from my family that have passed. Rather, I honor the ancestors all, capital A. And I do that because I don't have a lot of ability to know the deep history of my family. My family moved around a lot in Europe, and there was a lot of, escaping one place to get somewhere else, and being somewhere and going somewhere else, and then, very recently coming to America. And so it's a little messy, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. So I don't have all the names. I, of course, know the people who I've known in my life who have passed over, and I hold them very near and dear to my heart. But I honor and respect the ancestors all. And that just simplifies it for me. And it's allowed for the ancestors who have taken an interest in who I am and what I'm about and the work that I'm doing to really come forward and to really kind of be on my radar. And from there, you could have a more personal relationship with those people. But there are, again, folks who have people in their family they don't want anything to do with. So don't feel like you're in some way obligated because they've passed the initiation of death that you now owe them your devotion and worship. No. It's unnecessary. If you want to exclude them intentionally from all your work, go for it. These are concerns for our side of the hedge, but the ancestors, all the lines should be honored. You want to keep those gateways open so that people, again, that love you and love what you do and love what you're doing can show up for you, right? And so don't feel pressured to work with specific people. So I've brought this up a few times, and this is really the mystery of ancestral work, that the work itself is just making sure the doors are open. That's really all we can do safely, without deeper sorcerous workings, which, beyond the scope of this particular presentation. So we do that by remembering, acknowledging, offering, praising. That if you keep an altar or a shrine for the plant spirits, for deities you work with, that there should be some space set aside for your ancestors, all ancestors with a capital A. You can create iconography however you like. I work with the image of a skull wrapped in ivy. That's very powerful for me in the symbolism that I work with, and brings it into my plant spirit work. You could work with, images of skulls, or, whatever works for you. Skulls seem to be the common, and they, there's an invitation there for us to confront the reality of death. And it seems macabre and it seems kind of intense until it's not anymore, until you can look at that skull in the eye sockets and see beauty there and acknowledge the process of death and decay and regeneration, right? The reason I work with an ivy wrapped skull is the meditation that from death, life will always emerge, that it is the dying moving into the soil that creates richness and fertility for the plants to then grow from, who then nourish us until we die, and then we nourish them again. So that meditation it's powerful. It follows the breath, it follows the cycles of the seasons, and because it's so fractal that way, we really should be attuned to it. So create a space for your ancestors and make them welcome. Say hi to them once a day, ring a bell for them, pour some clean water or some alcohol, or certain times of the year you can do more detailed offerings. Keep a vase of fresh flowers for them. Again, you may be thinking or holding in your heart certain people who have really impacted your life powerfully that have now passed over, and that's totally good. I do that as well. But it's really an offering of love and outpouring to all the mighty dead, to all of our collective ancestors, because at a certain point, when we're honoring the ancestors of blood, the ancestors of land, and the ancestors of tradition, we eventually are honoring everyone, right? So that's pretty cool. So you can hold the sentiments for specific people in your heart, but acknowledge that the offerings that you place the invitations you make, the words you say are rippling out and touching the ears of all of our collective mighty dead. And really, that's all it takes. Open the door. Make your honor, your love for them known. Do something simple like creating a little space for them, or pouring a libation for them, or once a week, placing some food for them. Because once you do that, you break the surface tension and their wisdom begins to flow into your life. And how that happens for each individual person is very, very unique, but it will happen through dreams, through synchronicities, through healings and adjustments in yourself and your family. It's pretty amazing. And I have this conversation with a lot of folks when they come to me to learn, what are you doing for your ancestors? How are you feeding them? How are you attending to the people whose blood is in your blood that already have this magic? Let's start there, right? That's already inside of you. One little taboo that I want to give you is that things offered or given to the dead should never, ever be consumed by the living. So, if you pour a libation for them, or set food for them, or even put flowers in a vase for them, or create a little physical space for them, that's not yours anymore. And it becomes thin, becomes liminal. And we don't want to pull too much of that energy into our living bodies for obvious reasons. So what has been offered to the dead, what has been set aside for them, I don't even touch, right? Once it's been on my altar for a day or two, I very carefully go and pour it outside or put it into the compost bin. And I will never set my car keys or a drink or anything on the altar dedicated to the dead, because now it is saturated with that energy, which is not the energy that I want in my car or in my body. So be mindful that the boundaries between the living and the dead exist for a reason, and that even as we're doing ancestral work and working with our mighty dead, we have to honor those boundaries. And we have to honor them very carefully, more carefully than we honor them as they exist between humans and plant spirits, between humans and deities. There's a lot of room for play there. But with the dead, we do not know a lot of things for a reason. Those mysteries are in place because mystery is powerful. Not knowing is powerful. And so we need to honor that. And with that, let's wrap it up. So if you have questions, if you've been doing ancestral work, if you have relationships with your ancestors, I would love to hear about it. Perspectives on how plant spirit work and ancestral work are the same thing, right? And until next time, take care. I'll see you soon.